Love lives here.
So I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker today. If you were here last week, he's no mystery to us, well known. He's our amazing ministerial intern, Csl Hayner. He's been a practitioner for 10 years. He's a senior at the Holmes Institute for Ministerial Training. And also, among this busy life of his, he works full-time as a fourth grade teacher extraordinaire. Yes, we love that he's in the classroom with these young people. And he took a lot of classes, both here at this center early on, and then his practitioner training at Greater Las Vegas CSL with Ed and Reverend Jeff. So he's well known and beloved to us with such a beautiful, beautiful consciousness. So please help me welcome Csl Hayner.
Thank you. All right. I love that circle of life song, but I feel like when I get up here, I should have a lioness or lion cub in my... I forgot to wear my safari hat this morning. Well, I'm honored and privileged to be here this morning. It's always a joy to be with the spiritual community and to try to fill in the very large shoes of Reverend Jeffrey. So I'm glad that you are here with me this morning. I do want to do a little shout out to Dinah and Jocelyn, because our sound tech guy was not here this morning, so they stepped in lovingly to fill in. So let's give them a big round of applause. So the CSL theme for the year, of course, has been Living Everyday Wonder. We've been talking about how our spirituality intersects with all those various parts of our life, like work and relationships and emotions. And this week, or this month, we have been talking and focusing on the aspect of nature. If you were here last week, we talked a little bit about the spiritual principles of water, the wisdom of water, and what that teaches us about change and how we can be more mindful of the way that we flow through life. And if our thoughts and our words can change the shape of water, imagine what it can do for the rest of our life. So this week we're going to shift our focus a little bit, and if you haven't noticed, our media team's so awesome, everything is coordinated. We're going to be talking about the animal kingdom. And last week I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, "Why are you talking about water and animal and nature in church? What does that have to do with the science of mind? What does that have to do with spirituality?" So just in case you might have that question in your minds, in his book, Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes writes that the science of mind, which is the name of our philosophy, is built on the theory that there is one infinite mind, which of necessity includes all that there is, whether it be the intelligence of humankind, the life of the animal, or the invisible presence, which is God. In Science of Mind, we learn to have a spiritual sense of things, and we are able to discern the spiritual idea back of the physical symbol. The spiritual idea back of a physical symbol. That's a pretty good way to describe our philosophy. Now, I know that many of us are drawn to nature, to spend time in nature, even if it's just in our own neighborhoods. And I think that's because at a deep level, it resonates with us that same intelligence, that same love, that same pattern that we see reflected in nature is reflected in us. And it reflects the divine. That same intelligence behind water is the same intelligence behind us. That same intelligence behind all of the creatures, big and small, is the same loving presence behind us. It is all a physical symbol of a spiritual truth. Many cultures, many indigenous cultures, have recognized this and have some mythology and archetypes around animals. Their role in the creation of the world and the meaning of the messages that they bring into our life. I know as a fourth grade teacher that I often teach stories about Coyote and how he brought fire to humankind, or how mischievous he was and how he helped create things in nature. These stories are all around us and in indigenous cultures. They recognize the spiritual truth behind the physical symbol of the animal. The ancient wisdom tells us that to invoke the name of an animal or to take on its appearance is to invoke its gifts in your life and its energies into your tribe. And it's been my observation, I think I'm pretty right about this, that we all kind of have an animal that we have an affinity to. I was talking to a couple of my fellow practitioners this morning. One of them really loves whales, and the other one really loves hummingbirds. Now, I'm not going to tell you which one, because if you ever have an affinity for one of these, an animal, and you tell people, suddenly your life is full of their gifts. Have you noticed? So we all have these animals that we have resonance with, that are in our lives for a reason. And for me, in the early part of my life, it was wolves. Don't ask me why. Something about the fact that they could live on their own and in packs. And I had this like meditation tape that had the howling sound of wolves in the background. So I used to listen to it every night to fall asleep. Now, spiritually, according to the internet, which we know is never wrong, spiritually, wolves represent a desire for freedom and living life powerfully, guided by instincts. Now, I would say that's pretty accurate, considering I spent most of that part of my life either in a fight or flight state of mind. But nowadays, for some reason, I really have a thing for sea turtles. I used to watch sea turtles, and they're just like gently gliding along and going with the flow. Of course, I made the mistake of mentioning this to somebody, so now my life is full of little sea turtle figurines and really cool paintings and all sorts of things. And of course, since I mentioned this out loud, sea turtles now feature prominently in my Facebook ads and in my email. Don't you wish that everybody in your relationships was as good a listener as your phone and Facebook? Anyhow, so I have this thing about sea turtles, and I saw this ad for a really cool sea turtle painting, and it said, the wisdom of the sea turtle. And the wisdom of the sea turtle is to trust the flow. I like that. Not just go with the flow, but trust the flow. Be calm under pressure. Be at home in your own shell. Enjoy time alone. Spend more time at the beach. Travel at your own pace. And keep moving forward. I think that's pretty good advice for where I am in life, especially the spend more time at the beach part. I've been watching little clips of Crush from the Disney movies, and you go to like Disneyland and they have that really cool thing where the sea turtle talks to you. It's amazing. You guys should check that out. So this is all to say that the animals in our lives, whether real or just figurines and symbols, speak to a greater spiritual truth. We should pay attention to the animals that we attract into our life. I had a dear friend at one point who was a Cherokee Indian, and she would always talk to me about paying attention to the animals that cross your path just on a daily basis. I saw a coyote cross the street the other day, or you see a certain hawk or bird, that all those animals that appear in your life are there for a reason and to have a message for you. So the second little bit of spiritual wisdom I want to talk to you today about, all of our friends who are furry, fuzzy, slimy, and scaly, is the importance of diversity. You see, in the natural world, diversity isn't something that you have to form a committee about, or write a book about, or have a special day for, because diversity is the default. In nature, diversity makes you stronger. Diversity is the way of everything. There is not just one of anything in nature. Every species, every bird has its own color, its own sound. Every seed of a tree has its own unique shape. Charles Darwin, that's really where he got his theory of evolution, was noticing that birds' beaks were especially designed to eat the food that they ate. So if they ate a certain kind of seed or a certain kind of plant, that their beaks were designed perfectly for the food that they ate. Every form of life has its unique characteristics. And why does that work? Because while life might be competitive, it's not a competition. Every animal, every plant has things that it does well, things that it's perfectly adapted for. Every organism has a role to play, and every form of life has a unique niche. That's the scientific word. Has a unique niche, a specific role, a specific job that it plays within the greater ecosystem. Now, what if that was true for everybody in your life, in your personal ecosystem? What if every single person that's in your personal space and in your life is there for a specific reason and a specific role? All of life is designed to be able to perfectly do the job that it's there to do. You see, plants convert energy from the sun. Pollinators allow flowers to bloom into fruit. Prey animals keep the plants in check. The predators keep the prey in check. And the decomposers recycle it all and keep all of that energy flowing. It all has a role in our life. Speaking of decomposers, I was talking to my sister yesterday, and she's a environmental engineer, and she's been really focused on thinking about fungi lately, so I told her I would use this in my talk. Fungi, interestingly enough, are not plants or animals. They are so unique that they get their own kingdom. Sound like anybody you know? Fungi are amazing because they break down all that organic matter so that it can be used again. Not to mention, they let us make some very important things like bread, cheese, and beer. Fungi actually have these huge networks of things called mycelium that reach out into their environment, and they act like a nervous system. The mycelium find a food source, and they send a signal back through the mycelium back to the plant that says, hey, we need this certain kind of enzyme to break down this food. And that enzyme is then sent out to where it is needed. What if our culture, what if we truly embrace the idea that we all have a unique role, a niche, a job, which each one of us is perfectly designed to fulfill? You see, a wolf doesn't spend its time wishing it was a sea turtle. A wolf is a wolf. A sea turtle is a sea turtle. They all have their own special beauty. But how often, as we as humans are always comparing ourselves to something outside of ourselves? I wish I was more like that person. I wish I had a house like that. I wish I had that job. I wish I looked like that. I wish I had that hair. The wolf doesn't spend time saying, oh man, I wish I was more like a sea turtle. You see, we are all beautifully and wonderfully made, just like fungi. And as long as you are on this physical plane of existence, you are here for a reason. You have a job to do. Third spiritual principle is connection. Animals remind us that we are all irrevocably connected. That what happens to one of us affects us all. Each month of the year, CSL has a book that goes along with the theme for that month. And the book this month was a book called The Secret Wisdom of Nature. And in that book, the author tells a story about how wolves can change the path of rivers. Wolves can change the path of rivers. You see, wolves affect the population of elk. And when in the 1930s and 40s, when all of the wolves were killed off, the elk population exploded. And elk love to eat the grass that is on the banks of all of the rivers. And when they ate all the grass, erosion increased, and the rivers changed course. You see, wolves can change the course of rivers. What if we were all just a little bit more mindful of that what happens to us affects all of us? Would we make different choices? Even one small choice to be more mindful of our consumption, of the words that we use and how we talk to each other. How often that we water our lawns. The amount of plastic that we use in our life. Every one of those choices affects the rest of the plants and animals and critters on our planet. And just like all those plants and animals and critters on our planet, our first and most important job is to support life. Do the choices that we make, as much as possible, support the rest of life around us? Now, our ego might tell us that we are separate and above all of this. And animals, as far as I know, don't share that ego. They remind us that even if we choose to ignore it, we are connected with the rest of life all around us. Fourth spiritual principle. Unconditional love and joy and staying in the moment. Now, this principle may only truly apply to domesticated animals. I wouldn't suggest you go snuggle up with the local wildlife. I have a 18-month-old puppy named Timothy McGee. Yes, he is named after the NCIS character. And he is a bundle of joy and enthusiasm. I just kind of wish he knew when to turn it down. You see, he is always staying in the moment. He's playing and barking and chasing birds, and he reminds me that I need to take time for play and joy, even if it gets you in trouble sometimes. You see, he gets in trouble for stealing the pillows off of everybody's beds, taking them outside and playing his favorite game of keep away. But when he gets in trouble for that, he doesn't take it personally. He just goes about his day and finds another way to express joy in life and annoy everybody. Express the love that he is. Our pets provide us connection and love and remind us that staying in the moment and finding joy in our lives should be the top of our to-do list. Fifth spiritual principle is evolution. Ernest Holmes, the founder of our teaching, believed that all of life was a series of evolutionary steps. He said that consciousness sleeps in the mineral life, dreams in the plant life, awakens in the animal life, and comes to full self-consciousness in human beings. While we may all be self-aware and conscious, we are the only life that we know that is self-aware and conscious. That doesn't exempt us from evolution. All of life is constantly evolving towards more and more consciousness. And I like to believe that when we leave this physical plane of existence, that we become consciousness itself. All of life is constantly asking itself, is what I am, is what I'm doing serving me? Is it serving life? Because you see, that which does not support life is eventually self-eliminated. The difference is, according to Holmes, is that we have the freedom to consciously co-create, to consciously evolve or not. We can be conscious co-creators with life, both allowing life to shape us and guide us, and us deciding what we want to claim and name and how we want to affect our life. We have the ability to choose to evolve, to be more mindful, to be more conscious. We humans like to think that we are the most intelligent species on the planet, but we have a lot to learn from all the forms of life around us. All the beautiful and diverse forms of life have a role to play, a unique spirit, and a unique way to express spirit. So, as we close up our talk this morning, this week I invite you to be mindful of the animals and the animal spirits in your life. Practitioner Jeannie this morning did a beautiful meditation about the lessons that we can learn from all the scaly and fuzzy creatures in our lives. Recognize them as divine expressions, physical symbols that have a spiritual truth behind them. Just by being mindful and grateful would go a long way towards shifting our consciousness. So in closing, the Franciscan monk and conservation biologist Gary Nabon writes this. He says, "What if all of creation is the most palpable expression of our Creator's generosity, sense of wonder, and commitment to diversity? What happens if we begin to include the fungi, the flowers, the butterflies, and the flocks of wild geese as our neighbors, our family, and of our Creator's expressive face? Whenever," he continues, "whenever any of us feels gratitude for all of Earth's creatures, we have become more fully present, more fully alive ourselves. Even the furry, the fuzzy, the slimy, and the scaly ones. And so it is." And so I invite any of the practitioners, board members, or ministers who might be with us this morning to join me in prayer. And just from this place of stillness that we seep in spirit, recognizing that it is all that there is, that it flows and moves and has its being as every form of life. We are no exception to that. We are the living, the breathing, the conscious creation of a conscious spirit, a reflection of a divine and perfect pattern that is behind all of life. God, presence, Great Spirit is all that there is. And we live, move, and have our being as divine's expression of that one. And so knowing that that is true and standing in my power this morning, I speak my word for each person here this morning, knowing that whatever feels like it's lacking in your life, it is present right here and right now because God is present. I know that each one of us is on a journey to be more mindful, more conscious, more connected with all of the life around us. I know that wherever there is a feeling of lack or limitation, that feeling is now dissolved back into the light that knows no opposite. And I'm so deeply grateful for this place, this philosophy, this teaching that helps me be a more conscious and mindful member of the living community around me. And in that gratitude, I release this word into the law, knowing that it does not come back to me void, but fulfills everything that is planted into it. And if you agree with any part of this affirmative prayer, I invite you to say with me, and so it is.
Love lives